and welcome to Where My Prose At. Second episode I've had trouble with that.
That's like 15 episodes down or something, and you still don't know the name of our show.
Where am I? Who am I? How did I get here?
Who is a big question in what we're doing today, because we're covering Murder on the Orient Express, but not the book. For today is a movie special. Ooh. So since we've already done a book review of this book, we're instead going to do the movie review with the book in mind as well.
Yep.
So this is Murder on the Orient Express, originally by Agatha Christie.
Yes, and we are covering the most recent film adaptation, directed by Kenneth Gilroy Lockhart, basically. Kenneth Brand, I can't say his last name. He stars as Hercule Poirot.
Hercule Poirot.
Yep. He stars as the inspector as well as directing the film. This film also features Johnny Depp. Oh goodness, what's his name? The Green Goblin.
Do you just refer to everybody in their fantasy roles? Is
yes.
That all you know? Okay.
Normally I know exactly who it is, but it's completely escaped my mind. So Green Goblin, you know who I'm talking about, and a couple of other notables as well, including Olaf from Frozen.
For God's sakes. Okay. So yeah, there were quite a lot of big actors and big actresses in this. Mm-hmm. I noticed that immediately, and you would think that generally brings a lot of skill and talent to the play, which would improve the quality of the film.
I have so many opinions about this film. Okay, I started off quite liking it, quite enjoying it. I was like, ooh, they're really bringing life and color to the characters. Like, it felt promising. And then I don't know what happened. I think he got too waylaid with making like cool, interesting, artistic shots and not actually making a good film. I was bored. I was confused. I was angry at some parts. I was upset. Mostly it was just underwhelming, completely underwhelming, and so up itself. I felt it was really pretentious.
Yeah, it was certainly pretentious, which is funny because in some ways it should have been more pretentious for the era, and wasn't pretentious enough in those aspects. Like, this is upper citizenry. There's literal princesses and like high figures in society here, and they keep talking and chatting as if it's modern era. That really irritated me.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with you there. Like, it did feel a little bit modern, but the conversations that they were having didn't feel out of place. They weren't talking about, like, I don't know, Dance Revolution or anything.
Well, no, but like the CEO of the train company, or the nephew of the CEO or whatever. Which, by the way, side note, don't know why they cast him. That was supposed to be an elderly man. This was supposed to be the director. I really enjoyed his character.
He was probably the only character I enjoyed.
No,
he was funny. He made me laugh. I knew who this character was. It felt like a real character to me.
No, the way he went on about how like he's just constantly having sex with prostitutes and all this stuff.
That was one scene.
Yeah, but then he immediately starts flirting with people on the train and stuff. It's just irrelevant.
But it's very
and it's not at all
the character that they established in the first scene.
Yeah, but not what they established in the book. It's nothing like that character in the book, and I didn't like that.
I mean, okay, I don't like to do that thing where you compare. Like, there's an argument to be made for comparing, in a general sense, a book to a film, but it is a separate art medium. It's a separate medium. It's a different director. It's going to be filtered through that director.
That's absolutely fine, and I'm okay with necessary change. I'm just not okay with unnecessary changes. That was a clear unnecessary change.
I don't think it was unnecessary. I think it brought a little bit more life to it. It was actually the only point of the film that I actually enjoyed. The only point that I was like, this is a pro for me. So it's kind of funny that you brought it up, because that's the only thing that I liked about this film. Is I enjoyed it. It felt fresh. He was funny. He felt a little bit more, I don't know, it just felt a little bit more in keeping with a film that was coming out in this day and age. Like, it felt like
that's
a character
exactly
that
why
we
I didn't
understood.
like that. Yeah.
But I enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that. And Mrs. Hubbard, I felt like the actress that played her, like, she was trying really hard. Like, you could tell she was trying to do what she could with what she had, what she was given. I don't know. I just think Lockhart. I'm just going to call him Lockhart. Lockhart, he just got so wrapped up in his own hubris that, he was just so, it was just bloated. It was bloated.
He's supposed to be overly confident, and that's Poirot's thing, is that he it's like Sherlock Holmes, right? He has that confidence because he's earned it. He is the best in the world, and that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. The problem that I had was well, I had a lot of problems, but it wasn't that. So at the very start, the scene with, well, the crime that he solves at the start after his egg thing that he does at the start.
That was added in.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then they got on a boat. The boat wasn't in the book either. They got a train.
Okay.
So I'm saying lots of unnecessary change and additions here. And by the way, that scene with Hercule Poirot at the start where like he has the sword in the wall and the guy runs into it and all that.
Cane, yeah.
Very, very modern day Sherlock. Didn't feel like Poirot to me. And I feel like they're just trying to borrow from how Sherlock does his stuff. I love the character of Sherlock in the modern day. I love the Sherlock TV series. I think it's great. I really enjoy it. But Poirot is not that. And I don't think they should borrow that archetype.
I actually did say to you, I feel like this was obviously made in a post Robert Downey Jr., Benedict Cumberbatch Sherlock world, because you could tell that they were trying to hit the same notes.
And they shouldn't. They should have tried something new.
And the crying for Catherine or whatever her name was, his lost love.
That was just added in. Where did that come from?
Way too much.
Like, I'm sorry, but Poirot, like, I get that they want to make him more human or whatever. But there's an entire TV show where there's not this weird emotional thing with Hercule Poirot, where instead he's just a detective.
But it went nowhere. Like, it went nowhere. It wasn't even like a wistful longing, in one conversation you get a kind of a hint. And no, but it felt like he kept trying to ring this bell for what reason?
Yeah, it's because Hollywood has a rule that any major blockbuster, especially a new thing, has to have romance. If there's no romance, it doesn't get through. So they managed to put the stamp on it. Well, technically, there's some kind of X romance. Does that count? They're like, okay, fine, push it through.
No.
We see this all the time, and I really dislike because you can have a good story without romance. There are many people who live thoroughly interesting lives without ever having a partner or being married or whatever, and that's okay. And I don't like the Hollywood feels like people only go to the cinema if there's a marriage or something.
It's just adding extra drama to, and sometimes that can be a good thing. But for this, the story already is interesting enough. It doesn't need unrequited, long lost, tragic love story.
Oh, Catherine.
That's exactly what he was doing. It was literally just like entire scenes devoted to him staring at pictures and looking wistful out train windows. His name is Brutus. He's so little. He's a little broody fly. He's a little broody butterfly.
In terms of the things that are good about this, just moving on from that, the things that are good about this film, I thought the cinematography was actually very pretty, except for the CGI. When they first showed the train billowing off from the station, pure CGI, and it looked ugly. It looked just so unreal. It looked like a standard it looks like they took a video of an empty railroad and then CGI'd a train on top, which is exactly what they did, I believe.
It's so funny watching these with you. You're a photographer and you do computing science, so you can absolutely see the cracks. I thought it was pretty.
Well, you weren't looking for them. I'm sure if you looked for them, you'd see them. I thought it was
nice. I was like, I like these sweeping grand shots of like the train.
The cinematography was nice.
Yeah, but. And the same on the other foot, I absolutely despise the unnecessarily artistic shots. I like Dutch angles. Why was there a Dutch angle? Dutch angle is for.
Can you describe what that is?
Sorry, a Dutch angle is one of the most overused camera angles in filmography, and it's basically when they do it at a slant, and it's to show that perception is a little off. It's like Alice going down down the rabbit hole. It's a little. The world is turned a little bit. When they were doing the Dutch angle, it wasn't. I think it was people just having a conversation, but it wasn't like a tense. I don't know. It wasn't.
Okay.
It was.
Didn't notice that.
It was unnecessary. Also, there was a shot that was from above.
Oh yeah, that random scene where it was Poirot and the conductor or whatever.
I like the idea, but it needs to make sense. You are telling a story with your filmography as much as you are with your words.
I think that was to try and make it show how small the space is. It's trapped in with a murderer type thing. But that was not portrayed, by the way. I see that's what I would do with that kind of technique, but I don't feel like they did that.
But you could have done that a different way, like with all the characters together and showing like them kind of like bumping. I don't know. There would have been a different way to kind of do it. It was just Perot and
just having
a chat.
Yeah, it was a tense scene, but it wasn't anything to do with feeling claustrophobic, which is what it should be used for.
And then the last shot, where they're all at the Last Supper. They all set up like they're at the Last Supper.
Why?
Who is Jesus in that situation? I mean, I guess Mrs. Hubbard is Jesus in that situation. Well, then who is Judas? Who like, it has
No, it
to
was
make
just
sense.
unnecessary.
You can't just do things because they look cool. It has to make sense in the context of the story. And I don't know. I just felt like there was a lot of unnecessary, pretentious, bloated BS.
At the very start of the film, I felt like when they started introducing the characters, like, first of all, Poirot walked into that restaurant, cafe, whatever, and he's hanging out there talking to his director buddy. I was like, okay, fine, that makes sense. He met one person. And then he meets somebody else. And I'm like, okay, that's fine so far. Then somebody else, then somebody else, then somebody else. Within like 2 minutes, you meet almost the entire cast.
Well,
I
I
lost
think
track
that
straight
was
away.
important for the story.
You need to,
but
but instead of that stupid scene at the start where there's a random crime that he solves, like, there's a difference.
Yeah.
They could have just spent more time introducing the characters more slowly and actually making them memorable.
Yeah, or making you have a connection with them, absolutely, because like that's what they were. I completely agree with you.
We've read the book, so we could already attribute the characters with archetypes and ideas in our mind, that we filled those spaces up. That's fine. If you hadn't read the book and watched this film, you'd be like, I'm immediately lost to who's who.
Oh my gosh, you'd never want to read the book as well
Yeah.
after watching this film, I don't think. I
Yeah.
mean, like, I don't know. I don't know who this film was for. I don't know who it was for, if it was to reinvigorate, Agatha Christie's, materials.
It's a cash grab.
You could have done it differently. I don't know. I think it was a vanity project. I really think Professor Lockhart, directed this film and starred in this film. Like, that's what it felt like. It felt like this kind of monument to him.
I would really enjoy this film a lot more if it wasn't written in 21st century Hollywood mindset of scripting. The action scenes, so many unnecessary action scenes.
Yeah.
You know what action scenes are in the book? None. They investigate the one that happened, but that's not, you don't see it happen. That's the whole point. It's a mystery. This is not supposed to be a thriller. This is not supposed to be a murder or an action thing. But there were so many action scenes.
Oh, and
Poirot got
there's
shot
on a train, so obviously, like, was there someone on top of the train fighting?
No,
that didn't happen. Okay,
there was
feels like
unnecessary walking around the top of this train scene.
That's right. Yeah. I don't know. I just.
And then Poirot chased one of the guys who was trying to burn the ledger down a bunch of scaffolding. Also, the train, I don't believe, was on a precipice of a giant cliff with ice everywhere in the book. I think it just stopped somewhere near a tunnel. I mean,
it was in ice. It was in snow.
Sure, it was, but it wasn't like
that.
teetering off the edge like that.
I don't have a problem with that necessarily. Like, that kind of like, add a little dramatic tension. That's fine as long as you follow that up.
I disagree. That means that they failed in making the tension with the murder. Then that's what they did. Nobody gave a crap, right?
What'd you think of Johnny Depp as Cassetti?
It was fine.
Yeah.
He did a good job. I think he's very good acting.
I mean, I have to say, I think he was pretty good, actually. There was a scene between when they were sharing his dessert, him and and Perot.
I like that scene.
It's a pretty good scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, it was a pretty good scene. Like, this should have been more of like a character study instead of like, this setting.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're on the dot. That's phrased some of my loose thoughts together. Thank you.
Small, intimate, close-up cameras, conversations, and then using maybe one of your fancy camera tricks for like the tense moments or when it makes sense for the story.
Absolutely.
I don't know. This was all style and absolutely no substance, which is such a shame because they had a whole book there. You had an excellent book.
Hercule Poirot, which has a huge amount of reading material available to read and understand the character and who he is.
Agatha Christie, arguably the most famous story of Express.
No,
Everyone
arguably.
knows it. Yeah.
It is. It is. And there's so many TV episodes of Poirot as well.
Yeah.
You could easily get a nice feel for what was supposed to happen. Because like when I think Poirot, I think of what he looks like in the TV show. I've read this book as well, but I still think of the TV show, And I think a lot of people do. And I gotta say, like, the younger, more handsome version of Poirot in this, I didn't feel was well cast. I know you disagree with Lockhart. I think he did an okay job with his actual acting. I just don't think he looks like Poirot. Poirot's not supposed to be an attractive man. He's supposed to be a middle-aged, bald guy with a big mustache and kind of large, and
I got the mustache right.
He kind of looks like like the train conductor from Thomas the Tank Engine. That's what he's supposed to look like, right? Like or the guy in the Pringles tin. He's not supposed to be an attractive guy with who maintains his mustache with a wax holder and stuff.
That was gorgeous.
Although I think he may actually do that in the TV show.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to separate from the movie. But I enjoyed this kind of fresher take on I just enjoyed a fresher take on the character, I have to say.
I would have if it wasn't done in this direction. Yeah.
If it was done well.
But I do feel Poirot represents another positive masculine figure.
Absolutely.
I don't feel like he's sexist. I feel like he repeatedly talks to people of all races. He has a big love of international.
He's a bit condescending.
Well, he has a right to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, but if you're the number one in your field, and you have a right to be condescending
about it.
You
should still be humble.
You should be humble to an extent and be polite, but his job is to try and get information out of people, and he often says things that I think puts people on edge, like saying, "Why won't you accept this contract?" And he says, "I don't like your face." It's not just because it's comedy, which it is, but I think it's because it sets them on edge, and he can read more about them. That's a very detective type thing to do. Police do that kind of thing as well, which I enjoy. There was this really stupid scene where one of the characters says, "Or if, like Lucifer, we must fall because she's religious." I was like, and I get that she's newly religious and everything, and therefore she's like heavy into it.
But they didn't really like.
This was the only thing that really pushed that. Otherwise, it seemed fairly standard religious person. But this one thing just seemed so extremely like, what Christian would actually say, "Or like Lucifer, we must fall"? Like, it's just so dramatic and foolish.
It kind of reminded me of that the one religious nut in The Mist, the movie The Mist.
Oh yeah.
Like, at least that had a point, that religious fever and like this was only, it was 2 scenes actually where she was religiously, crazy, but I don't know. I just felt there's so much in this film that like amounted like the director set it up and then it just didn't. It came to nothing. Yeah. It just. It's
fizzled. Pieces of what could be a whole never formed.
I'm not necessarily the world's biggest Agatha Christie fan. I obviously she deserves respect, and I've never really read her stuff like on my own. I've never sought it out, so this was kind of even pushed me a little bit further away from it, which is a shame.
I wouldn't say so. I mean, I've completely This is not Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie is the books, and that's it. Right. I'm sure she had some sort of say into the TV show. I don't know if she was still around at that point. I think she was.
I think she was.
Must have been. So yeah, I don't even know if she's alive today. Actually, I have no idea. But I have a lot of respect for her writing, and actually, if anything, this makes me want to go read more Agatha Christie. Weirdly enough, because I want to wash the taste out of my mouth of this film.
Yeah.
The unraveling clues at the end are disinteresting at best. Like, the way that they actually describe the clues are such a side note of all this action. It didn't feel like a mystery to me anymore, really. It just felt, and the fact that the way that Poirot talks through it all and just explains it all blandly, it's just such a side note, and it didn't fit anymore.
Like, I know that not everyone that goes to see films, especially Hollywood films, is conventionally, we're not all conventionally intelligent people, and like that's fine. But I just get really annoyed when films constantly are dumbing like their material down for their audiences. Yeah. And that's the thing about when we were talking a few episodes back about To Kill a Mockingbird. Black and white films, like, you have this prejudice against them where you're like, oh, it's gonna be stodgy, it's gonna be too high tone for me to understand. But that was back when they trusted their audience. They would put out a film and wouldn't hold your hand through it. Yeah. You'd have to put it together yourself.
God forbid you have to watch the film a couple times to get it all. I mean, I don't think that's the end of the world. It shouldn't be so pretentious that you don't ever understand it. I can think of a couple of films like that as well. But it should still have difficult themes and difficult to grasp, because that's what's worth spending your time on, is complex ideas.
I mean, that being said, though, sometimes when you're work, you had a long day at work, you just want to come home and put your feet up and watch something silly.
Hey, I love Hardcore Henry, right? It's a stupid film, and I thoroughly enjoy it.
There's a lot of stupid films I love, and like reality television shows, but I just don't think this was the film to dumb it down.
Yeah, agreed.
This was not the film to dumb it down, and there's a reason why Sherlock did so well, and like that's a very Hollywood kind of take on this classic novel.
It's a Deus Ex Machina type mystery, right? You're not supposed to be able to solve it along the way because you couldn't. Yeah. It's supposed to be like the detective Sherlock actually adding in information that only he could see, like. The chalk on his duster of his jacket can only be found in this part of England.
But I don't know, with Robert Downey Jr. and Benedict, you never felt like these mediums thought that you were stupid and that you couldn't put this together. And even if you weren't Sherlock level intelligent, it was still like trusting you to be able to figure out where the plot was going to go next.
Absolutely. The action scenes, I actually wrote down the things that I thought were completely unnecessary. So the ledger burning, that was not necessary, where the guy's running away with the ledger trying to burn it, not necessary. Mrs. Hubbard getting stabbed, that was not in the book, I believe.
That not in the book?
I don't believe so. And it seemed entirely unnecessary. It just seems like another action scene. And also Poirot getting shot by the doctor. That wasn't in the book.
That wasn't in the book.
And entirely unnecessary. Just to make Poirot be more of this like sort of badass action hero or something. And then he like whips up the dust and hits him with his cane. Like, why is all that happening?
No, the whipping up the dust and hitting the cane, like I get that. That's an intelligent fight move. But why is there a need for a fight move to begin with? There
wasn't a fight in the book. And
exactly.
they added it because they couldn't make it interesting without adding an action.
Just alone, like taking these fantastic actors that you have, this beautiful set, and just making it about conversation and wits, and people making assumptions about each other. And
it was such an elegantly written book. Yeah. And such an inelegant film.
I just felt
clunky.
The first 10 to 15 minutes, I was like, I think this is going to be something good. I'm quite enjoying myself. Completely gone.
No, I didn't feel that at all. As soon as they started in the wrong place and told a random story, and Poirot was just obnoxious and irritating about random things, I didn't really enjoy that.
I still don't get the egg thing.
That's just his perfectionism.
Okay.
That's fine. That was a homage. That's okay. Poirot's monologue to Catherine about being unsure, afraid, and cannot find a crack in the wall is very un-Poirot. That's not what he's like. That's not how Poirot works in the books. That's not how Poirot works in the TV show. He's not so unsure and uncertain of what's going on. And even in the book, he doesn't show that sort of uncertainty. He just says, "Oh, we'll find out. We'll find more clues, and it'll come out. The truth will be uncovered." He's perfectly confident in his abilities. But for some reason he says, "This is the hardest mystery I've ever come across. And Catherine, I don't know if I could do it." It's just so unnecessary. Not only the Catherine thing, but also this lack of confidence in himself. When he previously, earlier in the film, says, "I'm probably the world's best detective." You can't have both ways. The irritating piano music, the meaningful piano music throughout,
I didn't even notice that.
It's the slow, like broken chords, the arpeggios on piano whenever there's like a thinking scene or something's being uncovered, and it's just, it's the same music over and over, or at least it felt that way. It might not have been actually the same music, but it felt like it constantly, and I was sick of it.
I do like the idea of having like, that kind of callback, music tells a story as well. Music and camera angles for movies, it's important.
Absolutely.
You put it there for a reason. Know why you've done it. Know why that piece of music is there. Know why you chose this to do different variations, and just...
The music should be there for everybody to enjoy the film as they're watching it and not really think about it. So it should be very fitting, but it should also have nice themes that follow through. Lord of the Rings is a great example of that. If you watch the music throughout there are themes that link back and forth between different parts of Lord of the Rings.
Exactly.
To make you think.
And when you hear like the Nazgul theme, like you're like, okay, right, like, or you hear like concerning hobbits, but like when it's towards the end of the film and
and it's different.
It means something. That's all I'm saying. Like with this film, it felt like nothing meant anything.
Yeah. The last thing I want to talk about, and the thing that really put me off the film and put it from, okay, we're doing a 5-star rating, so I would have maybe given it a 2. I'm going to give it a 1 star because of the Poirot attempted suicide scene. What the hell was that all about?
Oh.
Poirot offering to off himself because he felt like they deserved to get away with it or something, even though they've all been horrible people. They're all just... One of them shot him, by the way.
But I think they were trying to hint at it that, he just wanted to rest. He just wanted to go on a holiday. He has this tragic love. That maybe he's just tired and he can't seem to escape.
Yeah, they hinted all that.
He can't seem to escape being a detective. I get it.
And I think you're talking about the Last Supper type thing. I think that's what they were hinting at, right?
Yeah.
It's his Last Supper. He was Jesus.
Yeah.
He's the one that was going to sacrifice himself for the others.
Why did we need to have a Jesus allegory?
I get it, but it was inelegant and it didn't suit Poirot. That's not who Poirot is. Poirot wouldn't commit suicide for this. Yes, he absolutely would do what he did in the book, where he would say, normally I would report this and do as just, but to do as just in this case is to let it happen because justice has now been served. Like, he believed in that vigilante justice in this one occasion because so many lives were ruined by the original thing, and he decided that it was outside his control, and the best he can do is let it lie now. But in the film, he literally just tries to kill himself so that it looks like he was the killer because he cannot lie. What? It blew my mind. It made me so turned off because this is no longer a film about Poirot. This is some alternate reality Poirot that is just not the guy I know.
And like we discussed earlier, there's a time and a place. Like it can't all be the same. It can't be like the one version of Poirot and that's it.
Sure, they
changes, but like, if you are going to update it, if you are going to make a different, veer this differently from this character that decades of generations of people have come to know and love, make it good.
Yeah.
Make it for a reason. There was so much done in this film for the image and for the style and no reason. It was nonsensical. And there were some parts where I laughed and I was like, oh, that was quite a witty quip of dialogue, and it just made me long for those moments to be the crux of the film. Those witty kind of quips, where like there was a few things where he was just very blunt but polite at the same time that I absolutely adored. I loved, like we were saying about the discussion with Cassetti, over the cake.
Yes, there were some parts
well
that were
done.
good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. But those good bits were so few and far between, and when I did see them, it made me long for what this film could have been.
Yeah.
This was just the worst of Hollywood, just kind of troping it up, doing things for the advert of the film. That's what it felt like. It felt like all these things were like, oh, they were gonna have this scene because we're gonna put that in the trailer, and none of the actors seemed to. I don't know. Some of them felt like they were like, Olaf. He clearly just wanted to go home. He was the one who played McQueen.
Yeah.
Yeah. He just wanted to go home and take a nap, down somewhere, which is how I felt after watching this film.
I had no good feelings
It's salt in the wound when you enjoyed the book and you enjoy the character and you see something that you love kind of tarnished a wee bit. And yeah, I get it. I'd give this film 2 stars for myself just because there were a few maybe 5 moments of witty kind of dialogue that could have been built upon, and it just made me so sad.
What would your rating be if you hadn't read the book and the book didn't exist? Just a standalone film. This is the original.
I don't know, because I probably wouldn't have finished the film, to be completely honest with you.
Right. Yeah, I give it 1 star considering the book, and I'd probably give it 2 stars not considering the book, because a large part of my viewpoints is considering the base material and what Poirot is to me and how I've seen him over the years. Because my mum loves Poirot.
My mom too.
When I was growing up, I saw a lot of Poirot. Not by choice. It was just always on, along with MASH, which I did enjoy. So yeah, I do consider the 2 together. So 2 stars. You have been watching, listening, and enjoying Where My Prose At here on Versus the World video. Thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to hit like below, and be sure to also subscribe. That really helps us out. If you also share with your friends and like us and subscribe to us and follow us on all the various social medias.
All that good stuff.
All of that good stuff. And where can they find all those links? All those links.
All the links, I think it's in some kind of shrub or bush. Oh, link tree. So go to link.tr.
No.
Dang it! You do the spiel.
This is the second recording we've done today for the second show today, and she couldn't remember the last episode either. So it's linktr.ee/where my prose at.
Where are they?
Where are they? There's one.
Well, this is actually a broody bee. A butter bee. A butter brute.
That's a butter brute, yeah.
A butter brute.
linktr.ee/where my prose at. You can find our Reddit, our Instagram, our Facebook. We don't have a Facebook. Our Reddit, our Instagram, our Goodreads.
Reddit, Instagram, Goodreads.
Everything else?
I think that's it.
Twitter.
Yep, that thing.
Check out all those places on our link tree.
Instagram?
We already said that. Check out all those there and follow us, like and subscribe, all that stuff. Really helps us out genuinely. I know you're like, oh, I can't have that much, 1 like. you'd be surprised. It helps the algorithm to find people. It knows who to recommend our stuff to if you like it based on your demographic and stuff.
Plus, it makes him happy.
And it makes me happy.
It also makes the Broody Bee very happy.
We'll be back next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.